Well, hello everybody out there in Internet land. This is Chris from HHN with another exciting episode of Topher's Log. We're just going to go right into it here. I apologize in advance. The neighbors upstairs have discovered the joys of music. So if you hear the music coming from upstairs, I apologize. It's pretty loud, but there's bass coming from upstairs too. So, we're going to move on. But anyway, guys, we had a couple things happen this week. Of course, we had ticket prices, tickets went on sale. You can see the ticket prices when they go on sale. Tickets went on sale this week. Of course, you can buy your tickets and have your pick of the litter, whether it's single day tickets or the Rush of Fear passes or the Frequent Fear passes, the Ultimate Frequent Fear passes, the character dining experience. So yeah, we had a return to 80s, confirmed on the website. It's very interesting because I know last year it was very controversial because there really wasn't an 80s theme per se. There was an 80s connective tissue that happened with a lot of the houses and scare zones having something to do with the 80s or being connected with the 80s. And there was a lot of people who deny that, I think are kidding themselves. Of course, you had Stranger Things, you had Poltergeist, you had Vamp 85, you had Killer Clowns, you had Chucky, which wasn't set in the 80s, but the characters from the 80s, and he was celebrating his anniversary. You had Slaughter Cinema, and you also had Dead Exposure Patient Zero, all set or revolve around 80s in some way, shape, or form. So there was that. I think this year is a little bit looser than it was last year. As far as tickets go, I know that a couple of people have asked me in the past to do my sort of tips and tricks about the event. I'm always hesitant to do that because the event works differently for different people. There are always some fundamentals that I tell people to do whenever they go to the event. But in terms of tickets and stuff and whatnot, my experience is probably very, 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 very different from other people's experiences. For example, I've never gotten Express Pass. I don't use the Express Pass. I don't mind waiting in lines, as long as the line isn't 4 hours. Like I have no problem waiting, about an hour for a house. That doesn't bother me. We tend to not go over if the house is longer than an hour, unless it's like at the end of towards when it gets busier. We have no choice and we have to wait a little bit longer. There are select houses that we choose throughout the course of the event. We're like, we'll wait, because the houses are so good and we like the house. We don't mind waiting. So I don't particularly get Express. Express is a luxury that you either can afford or not afford, or if you want to splurge on it. I tell people all the time, if you want to splurge on Express, then get Express. If you're going for one night, I tend to tell people to go ahead and get the Express Pass because you have to, it's probably the only way you're going to be able to experience the event in one night. But I also like to steer people into the realm of the RIP tours. I think if you're going to splurge a little bit of money, don't splurge it on the Express Pass, splurge it on the RIP tours. Which I think some people have been catching on to because the last couple of years, the RIP tours have been ridiculous. There's been a lot of RIP tours and it tends to back up the lines a lot more at the houses because there's just a lot more RIP tours floating around. You add that, you add the Express Pass, and you add the regular line, things tend to slow down a little bit. So I have noticed that the last couple of years that I think more people are buying the RIP tours. All the tickets pretty much went up in price. The biggest one, of course, was the Ultimate Frequent Fear Pass. That one went up the most. But that one, it makes sense because especially with the multi-day passes, because there are more nights, there are more days. So prices had to go up a little bit. They're not going to charge the same amount of money for the Ultimate Frequent Fear Pass when there's 41 nights as opposed to 31 nights or whatever it was last year. So and the year before. So prices will naturally go up. Yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, so like I said, if you're going for one night, I definitely recommend going ahead and splurging on the Express Pass or even getting the RIP tour. I tend to tell locals that to don't splurge on the Express. Get the multi-day pass because instead of getting the Express Pass, you can get the multi-day pass, and you can. Even if you're not planning on going multiple days, I always try to steer people into the realm of the multi-day pass because you can go, especially the regular frequent fear pass, because you can go back later on. So if you go to the event early, and you're like, well, I want to go back, at least you have that cushion of the multi-day pass and say, okay, well, I can go, I can go back towards the end of the event. I mean, because the regular frequent fare pass, I believe, is almost the same amount of money, or it might even be the same amount of money as the single day pass if you're buying it at the gate. So I mean, if you're at the gate, then instead of buying the 1 day pass, hell, buy the frequent fare pass. I don't see any problem with that. And then you could always go back. But I know we live in a different world today, and people are I don't want to say impatient, but it's always like a let's go now type thing. I tend to think that if I'm waiting in line for a house for like an hour, it tends to not, or at least in my mind, it doesn't. It gives me a more clearer view of if the house is worth the wait or not, as opposed to someone just walking right in, or because that's the other thing with the express passes. I know people, that's been another hot button topic over the last couple of years. Express passes don't get you in right away. That's not what an express pass does. An express pass cuts your wait time in half. At least it used to say it on the ticket. It's probably somewhere on there where it says cut your wait time in half. So if a house is an hour wait, technically your express pass should get you in about a half an hour quicker. It's not always the case. There's not really an exact science to it, because if a house is an hour wait, a lot of times the express lines are a lot shorter. It depends on the volume of people going to the house. So like for example, Stranger Things, the express lines, and just with the sheer amount of crowds last year, the express lines tended to back up a lot because there's just a lot of people. A lot of people, but I would keep in mind that the express pass, it's not a get you in right away pass. It cuts your wait time in half. Doesn't always work that way in either direction. It could be faster or it could be a little bit slower. So, but you won't be waiting the 2 hours that us normal folk are waiting, for Stranger Things. It doesn't work that way. But it does get you in faster. So there's that. But I tend to to come with the mentality that, like, if I'm waiting in line, for a house for an hour, then my experience in the house is probably different than somebody who's just walking right in, or somebody who's getting in quicker than I am. Because if I'm waiting 2 hours in line for Stranger Things, and the other person waits 10 minutes to get in, that's a different different circumstances for everybody getting inside the house. Their views are going to be different. So I tend to err on that side, where, especially now that I've been doing Legacy for a long time, I tend to do it that way, because I think it gives me a clearer view on if the house is good or not. So there'll probably come a time as I get a little bit older here where I'm like, fuck it, it's time to get the express pass because I'm sick of waiting in lines. But I think we're still a little bit far off from that. So it is what it is. But yeah. So once again, when it comes to tickets, I'd say, especially with the express, if you really want the express, get the express. Splurge on the express. Don't, because it's expensive. So if you want it, get it. Don't not get it. If you think that you need it, then get it. Pull the trigger and buy them, or buy the multi-day pass that has it, that has the express attached. Get it. If you feel that you need it, then get it. Don't question it, just get it. But anyway, guys, that's it. I don't believe there'll be an announcement this week because we have the lovely Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure opening this week, so no announcement. But yeah, so stay tuned till for after, because you never know what can happen. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me, and I will talk to you soon.